Welcome again for the very first time to Jumping the Shuttle, the podcast that watches Family Matters, the TV show, backwards from the last episode toward the front
I
because
started with the first episode. Was that
this is going to
not what
be
I was supposed
confusing
to
for
do?
you. That is our man number one in Hollywood, John McDaniel. John, how you doing
Whoops.
today?
I'm already fucking up over here. Sorry about that. I'll see myself out.
Our number two man in Hollywood in the order and in our hearts, David Kenny. How are you doing tonight?
It's appropriate because this show is a piece of shit.
Come on, it's funny. You know it's funny.
John,
Everybody loves a crispy critter.
You can't do this every
Come
episode.
on.
I'll kill you. Episode 215 of Family Matters we're
Oh,
watching
baby.
tonight. Season 9, episode 22, the grand finale of the show, Lost in Space, Part 2. It's a two-parter. We're watching Part 2. This is the worst idea for a podcast that's ever happened. 20 years later. The original air date of July 17th, 1998, which is confusing because I've actually seen different sources say that this aired as a part of like a 1 hour long finale, but the previous episode was a week before, so I think they might have re-aired that on TBS and then aired this again. Or
I don't know.
Something.
You need to cite your sources. I don't know.
I will say before we get too far into this podcast that the fan-made wiki for Family Matters is at times literally impossible to understand.
I was on it today and it contradicts itself like two sentences back to back.
It changes stuff, and sometimes just within the course of a sentence you realize that you have slipped into an alternate reality where a different sentence has taken hold. And I will not be going back to that website, I think, at any point during this entire project.
Y'all are going way more down the rabbit hole. I'm trying to fly as blind as possible.
Well, give us a little bit of preview, and for the lovely listeners at home who, God, please God, are not doing this experiment with us, David, please give us an update. Throw the synopsis at us for Family Matters episode 22 of season 9.
Okay, this is from the IMDb plot summary. With the spaceship unable to return to Earth, it's up to Steve to save his fellow crewmen by gently removing the satellite that got stuck to its side. Once successful, he brings the crew home. Meanwhile, Myra makes one last push to get Urkel to come back to her by pretending to be his fiancé. The plan fails, and she eventually gives up on her pursuit. During that time, Carl helps Harriet understand her son's need to be a police officer. Eddie's meter maid duty takes a dangerous turn. And that's from Anonymous.
Thank you, Anonymous. I was wondering how detailed that was going to be, since it's not like the official TV guide listing. Although if we can find those, that might also be an interesting way to do these.
I was looking for some of that stuff too for, like John said, reviews, and I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. This was such a non-event, as we discussed in the previous episode. I don't honestly remember if this made the final cut or not, but one of the weird factoids that I ran across was that the cast themselves was not aware that they were filming the final episode until the curtain dropped and they came out to do a bow before the crowd, and the crew announced, "Congratulations, this is the final episode of Family Matters ever."
Surprise!
Which, I mean, I feel like, though, the cast had a sense that it might be the last season.
For sure.
We can get into more of this as we go, but, certainly Reginald Val-Johnson felt like it was probably time for it to go. So I feel like the cast had a sense that maybe, but to go out on this, I have been waiting my whole life to talk about this episode. And by my whole life, I mean, just, like the last week, but an epic TV show spanning 9 seasons, averaging, I think, about 50 million viewers.
Jesus.
An episode. This is how it leaves the air.
So while we're talking about cast and crew, would you like a little bit of peek into the geniuses that gave us Lost in Space Part 2?
Give it to me.
So the director
Define
of this
genius.
episode, well, I think you'll get a lot of insight based on some of these other credits. The director of Lost in Space Part 2 is a gentleman named Joel Zwick. That name didn't mean anything to me, but clicking on his IMDb page, his directorial credits are really extensive. He actually, it seems, unless they just credited him as like a courtesy, as will sometimes happen, but it seems like he actually directed he directed exactly 100 episodes of Perfect Strangers.
Oh, wow.
So that leads
Wow.
into this. He also directed some of the other shows that we mentioned last week, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, some other classic 90s shows, including Full House as well. He is still working today. He has directed episodes of Fuller House, the sequel series. Yes, absolutely true. Also has done
Fuller House, is that like a continuation of Full House, I'm guessing?
That is correct. Is this
I
something
knew
you
it.
actually don't know and you're
knew
making
it.
jokes time, or
I'm totally bullshitting you guys.
Girl Meets World? Can you guess what show that's spun off from as well, John? He's directed some of
Not
that.
ringing any bells. No, Boy Meets World, duh.
He
Obviously.
also weird, like sideways triumph, in my opinion. He directed My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh,
which is one of the few films that I can see quickly scrolling through here, and like a pretty big hit and a pretty well-made movie, I think.
Yeah, I love that movie, and it did obviously extremely well.
It's like goofy and cartoonish, but that's fine. Like obviously that that was very much his strength based on his sitcom presence for 20 plus years.
And I feel like it should be, at least in the TV world, you know, the director doesn't have as much influence over the content that you would in film. So they're more so coming in, you know, episode per episode, working with what the showrunner and the writing staff has come up with. So
he did do quite a few episodes of Family Matters specifically.
Any classics that you remember?
Well, I almost don't want to say anything because the names are so good.
But no spoilers, David.
I'll say at least that he did Lost in Space Part 1. So we are seeing his full vision for the Lost in Space saga. Right, absolutely. The episode was written, other than the staff writers and the executive producers and the guys who are running the show, creating the show, this episode was written by two guys who had their hands in quite a few episodes in this final season, one of which is Gary M. Goodrich, who wrote 22 episodes of Family Matters and 96 episodes of a show called The Parkers, which had Monique in it in the 90s, in early 2000s. And that he also executive produced, but I don't really know anything about that show. That was totally left out of our discussion last time, because it's a huge hole in my knowledge of this sitcom era.
Yeah, same here.
But that's it. Like, he pretty much has had no larger film or TV career outside of those shows, a couple little things here and there, but nothing notable. However, his co-writer, Timothy Stack, or Tim Stack, as he was credited quite a bit back then, is not only a prolific TV writer, to some degree, still to this day, worked on shows like My Name is Earl, Raising Hope, Son of the Beach, some relatively recent ones, but also is a very prolific actor, also appearing in My Name is Earl, as I believe himself. But also, he has done a lot of acting, including, you would probably know him best as the voice of Lampy in The Brave Little Toaster and the sequel to The Brave Little Toaster.
Get out of here.
Lampy wrote this piece of shit.
No, it is. You take that back. It is one of my favorite animated films of all time.
No,
I have no shame in admitting that.
I love Brave Little Toaster. I am saying I can't believe I have Lampy to blame for writing this piece of shit television episode that I just sat through. The radio, I could believe. Lampy, I didn't know he would do me like this.
Yeah, the radio. I don't know who was my least favorite. I don't know that we don't need to get into. This is not a podcast about the Brave Little Toaster.
I've never seen Brave Little Toaster, so we could do that next.
Let's do it.
It will be a shorter podcast because there's only, I think, 3, maybe 4 movies at the most.
Although it does share a connection with Family Matters because they do indeed go to space.
That's true. Yes.
Spoiler alert.
There is a Brave Little Toaster. They go to space.
Yeah.
So speaking of in space, everybody
Nailed it.
Let's jump in right into the episode here.
Let's please.
Jumping the shuttle.
What else are we here for? I mean, how much time do we have? There's a lot.
As long as it takes, unfortunately.
There's a lot to get into.
I think we'll have to get into more this time than we usually will, just because we have new perspectives. We don't necessarily know all these characters. We're going to have a lot more questions. And then those are going to go off of... those are going to fall by the wayside as we continue. Now, did everybody watch... I think we all watched this on Hulu, currently available to stream. As David said last time, Hulu does not want you to do the thing that we are doing, but you can.
No. I watched it. I'm devoted, so I watched it the old school way, straight off of a VHS tape. You know,
is that true? You said you had some. I didn't know if you really dug them up.
What I did was I watched it on Hulu. In the background, but I was actually just recording it from Hulu onto a VHS tape.
Okay, good.
So I could really watch it.
Did everybody watch the previously on segment?
I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Yes, I sure did.
The first of which has to be, they don't do this every time, do they?
I hope it's just because it's a two-parter.
Yeah, it's got to be because it's a two-parter. I mean, yeah. I feel like you rarely see that on sitcoms unless it's a to-be-continued situation.
Yeah, which, you know,
and this was like
to space, what's more high stakes than that?
No doubt. This was like the best previously on segment thing I've ever seen.
I feel like we even need to back up more just to the title of the episode. Because the first time I saw it, I was like, no, that can't be right. Like, I know you said this has an infamous ending to a crazy show, but even looking at the title, I was like, this is a joke, right? This isn't real.
Well, it seems like they're trying to do a joke with the title, Lost in Space, because that is the title of another show, and I don't remember at this point if that, like, remake movie had come out with, like,
the Matt
Lacey
LeBlanc.
Chabert and, all these other people who went on to do huge things. William Hurt, isn't he the dad? Jesus Christ.
Gary Oldman's the bad guy.
Oh my God. Well, he'll do anything. That's not really that high of a bar. I mean, he's great, but he is absolutely the Ron Perlman of Ron Perlmaning. But it's not a joke because technically Urkel is never at any point lost in space. Spoiler alert. Yep. And also at the end of last episode and the beginning of where this episode starts, there's no problem in space yet. He has just gone to space.
It's hard to tell when the previously on stops.
Okay,
and
good point. Yeah.
I think the cliffhanger is the satellite is coming toward the ship.
Okay, interesting.
Right. Yeah.
That's right. That's
you're
what it absolutely looks like, right. Yeah. But there are other Urkel-related problems that I'm thinking of that have not popped up yet, but are coming. So we start on the previously on segment with a knockoff NASA guy who is that guy who played every white dad in the 1990s.
Yep. This is the first line of dialogue we get in our backwards rewatch. Steve, I have very exciting news. The International Space Program has chosen you to be the first student in space.
Yeah, the ISP. So that's our knockoff.
And then we're off to the races from this. The previously on is 1 minute and 50 seconds of fucking wild bullshit.
It's insane. Oh, yeah. So this is the dad from Donnie Darko. That's like his most known thing, which is fucking huge, but also made kind of during this time period. And he also appears to be acting to this day, has movies that are in post-production and may never see the light of a screen due to the current pandemic situation that we're in. If you're joining us from the far-flung future, we're in the halcyon days of the beginning of the pandemic that has forced you to live in domes underground and create a civilization based on using podcasts as currency.
Yeah, you're assuming there is a future.
Right.
Wow. Debbie Downer over here.
Yeah, is that one of the predictions we want to make?
Predictions.
Will society last to episode 1 of this podcast? Will we make it 215 weeks?
Fingers crossed. Predictions.
So, Urkel's going to be the first student in space, which seems unnecessary.
But they have a third seat in the back for him.
No, yeah. I looked up just configurations of space shuttles. I looked up Columbia, and look, I get it. It's a TV show. It's a sitcom in the '90s. I feel like there's a different level of expectation for audiences now and authenticity. But
They wouldn't just name a shuttle Explorer.
No, probably not. And I did not come across any configurations where you'd have a third wheel just in the back there.
Well, I remember
just hanging out.
Like, I'm not a science guy by any means, not even in the same league as Bill Nye himself. But I remember hearing a fact about the amount of fuel it takes to take every pound into space, and it's an astronomical amount. Fuck that word, but it is a huge amount of fuel that it takes, and energy and money to send anything into space. So people have to be careful about like how many pens they take, and they're just like, we're the ISP, ISF, what the fuck ever. We're gonna send
send this nerd
an Urkel.
Well, because he's got the AGF 5000.
He sure as shit does. Now,
AGF,
what does
yeah.
AGF 5000 stand for, David?
That would be the artificial gravity feat, obviously.
Now, is it feet or field? Because I feel like I hear different things.
Oh, field would make a lot more sense, but I think I heard feet.
Okay. I have field written down but I also was taking notes very quickly, and my computer probably said, you don't mean that. So it's entirely possible that it could be feet. And
I really need the context of like
I have a question.
why I'm gonna predict
Predictions.
we don't really ever get it, but like what is this fake NASA see in this contraption that they think let's do this.
I'm assuming it's Urkel is an inventor. He's a young inventor, and they have built this up along the series, and this is finally his great invention that gets recognized, and he gets to go to space and almost die for it.
So I really hope that there's that payoff in the first of this two-parter, because in this version, they're basically like your fucking machine, it's ruined everything.
Yeah.
So
that's another question that kind of combines those two, which is,
I have a question.
how early do we see him working on the AGF 5000? Is it next week's episode, the immediately previous episode, or is there at least one other episode where he's working on it and then the international space assholes find out about it? Or is it introduced in 214 and that's it?
Yeah, well, just based on the previously on segment, it seems like it seems like it might just be a throwaway line, just going off of that. Like in the previous on, Urkel is just like, oh yeah, I have this anti-gravity machine I've been working on, and that's all we get.
The writer's room just like, how can we justify as quickly as possible that he has to go to space?
And as quickly as possible, this thing jettisons between Urkel is going to go to space to there's this intense family drama that deals with a very real situation of danger on the streets and cop and public violence. Number one, I think I made this prediction before.
Predictions.
I don't think in 2020 that the sun who is a young black man, aspires to become a police officer as a big
Absolutely.
payoff to his narrative
Absolutely
arc.
not.
Especially with the big concern being police safety.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that hasn't aged very well.
Well, John, what gives us an indication that we're worried about the police being safe in this Previously On?
I'm drawing a blank, honestly. Was
Well,
that in the Previously On?
The dad says, "This is my lucky vest," and he hands
Right,
over
right.
a bulletproof vest in which he has previously been shot, which to me sounds like a pretty unlucky vest.
No, it's Chekhov's bulletproof vest. You've got to have it.
It 100% is. As soon as I saw that, I put that in quotes and just goes, "That son's getting shot."
Oh yeah, yeah. You can't introduce that and then have that not happen.
I have so much to talk about the tone of this episode.
We'll absolutely get there. So one of the things, this is a very small thing. We don't actually see this character in the proper episode at all, but in the Previously On, we find out that this show has the nerve, as a show that began in the late 80s, ended in the late 90s, to have an old white lady whose name is Blanche, and I think that that's illegal.
Oh god.
That's not even my biggest problem because, like I said last week, I used to watch this show.
Uh-huh.
And in the Previously On, I saw some angry lady staring daggers at Carl Winslow, and I was like,
Not the mama.
hey, who's that lady?
Oh, okay. So this is our... Are we getting into the not the mama?
Not the mama.
We'll save it. But you know.
And so we find out that the mom is really against Eddie, the son, becoming a cop because she's worried about him going into a dangerous situation. We find out she's doing some kind of machinations behind the scenes. And then we just go right back to space time.
Well, we see very clearly stock footage
Yeah.
of a space shuttle launch.
Oh, yeah, because it looks
Mixed-
real.
And it's all grainy, mixed with terrible 90s CGI of the space shuttle.
Oh, that was CGI.
No, no.
Oh,
It was actually clay. It was claymation.
This is made by Rankin and Bass.
Yeah.
It was made by the paperclip in Microsoft Word.
It looks
had
like
some
you're trying to
notes.
make a space shuttle.
Here, let me. We have some clip art for that.
Oh boy.
And who should be in mission control but another that guy who played
Yeah.
everybody's dad in like late 90s, early 2000s. And also, I'm gonna rattle this off at the end. He has a crazy list himself of roles as cops. Just throughout
Oh.
his career, he has been a cop so many times. For anyone listening, this may be only relevant to people listening.
Which one are we talking about?
So this
Which
is
character?
the Mission Control character. He, I believe, is credited only as Mission Controller.
The crispy critter. The one that throws that
Yes.
crispy critter. That guy.
That's the very same. Who
He looks very proud.
he
of
has
that joke.
a basically inscrutable accent that goes between just neutral American and Southern throughout the episode.
That's
Which is-
interesting because he's like a famous impressionist.
Yes,
I
Jim.
feel like he's trying to be Leslie Nielsen a little bit.
I think he's
Little bit in
doing a
there.
little bit of like airplane thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Meskimen is his name, and I recently in late 2019 I'm thinking, just in terms of zeitgeist, he did this incredible Christmas poem where he did impressions of all of these different celebrities reading
Yeah.
parts of the poem, but they deep faked it so that his face looked like the people as he was doing it, and it was very unsettling but
Yeah.
incredible.
He has you looked at the cops, I just looked at his total acting credits. 263.
That's enough, I think.
Is that all?
He is working.
And as the Previously On ends with a satellite hurtling toward the shuttle in question, I have written only, as John has alluded to and been very explicit about, in fact, cutting edge graphics.
It is It's just next level. Until y'all mentioned it was CG, I had no idea. So
Like, the TV show reboot had been on and off the air already at this point, and it looked better than what I was looking at on the screen.
I really need to compare. I need to compare it to something else. So I'm not sure how bad it is compared to what else was out there at the time. But
Episode 1 came out a year later. Star Wars: The Phantom Menace came out in '99.
Well, the what you have to consider is not a lot of TV shows were making the bold creative choice to involve a space shuttle.
this is true. That is a very good point.
They were breaking new ground on Family Matters.
But to that point, and so far we've literally only done the recap.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. We gotta start busting ass here.
This is how dense it is. But the beginning of this episode really does feel like one of those 60s like sci-fi space shows, like with the ominous music and the sound effects. It's wild.
Well, yeah, except for the Family Matters intro music, and then we go from the standard Family Matters intro just right into space.
Where it was always
so
going.
We have this exterior shot of the city,
That's so funny.
and for me, like, I don't know, like there's a certain feeling I had watching Family Matters. I think growing up there was this, I don't know, like there was something comforting about the sitcom of it, and
it reminded you,
including the intro and
Family
then,
Matters.
That's the only way I knew.
So they just it's crazy. So you cut right from that intro and we're just in space.
Which is, just really just pulling back really quickly on the zoom. Just from the exterior shot of the city and the house to all the way exterior.
One shot.
Yeah, no, yeah. If we were doing this today, we would get definitely smoother with the transition. Pull back or pan up.
We would not hire the auteur behind Birdemic to do the graphics for that. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, wow.
I know we're not to question corner yet,
I have a question.
but if a spaceship catches a satellite and it punctures a hole in it, would it not explode or something terrible would happen? It just kind of catches it and spins.
Depends on where it hits. And I will give them credit only for the fact that they had this collision make a spinning motion, which is likely-ish, depending on how it hit.
I'm good friends with Bill Nye. Should I give him a ring?
Yeah. Are you talking about the actor?
Yeah, Bill Nye.
Bill Nye, the science guy.
Okay.
I got him. I can call him up real quick if we want to settle this.
Okay, I will give you that it spins. However, if the spaceship is spinning, shouldn't they have artificial gravity at that point?
Well, this is not the first time that the problem that they're trying to solve with the artificial gravity field AGF 5000, which is we don't want to have a bunch of specialty shots and special effects shots. We want to be able to have people sitting or standing in the shuttle because we're using a conventional set to make this shuttle work. They've just created so many more problems by introducing other physics problems into the situation.
Can I also bring up? So we're talking about logic here.
Mm-hmm.
I scrubbed this back and forth maybe 10, 15 times.
Oh, God.
The moment when we see Al get up out of his chair, right?
Okay.
And he conks his head on one of the instrument panels.
So this-
he passes out.
One of the astronauts.
Yeah, and then we have Mitch. She's like, "I'll go get him."
Another astronaut. The classic rule of twos in comedy.
Yeah. So Mitch is like, "I'll go get him," and he gets up, and this is where I scrubbed it back and forth. It seems like they make it sound like Mitch bumped heads with Al.
Yeah.
But I don't see that at all. I just see Al knocking his head into Mitch's shoulder. So
Well, you can also get a shoulder concussion.
Well, you know how if people stay in space for an extended period of time, astronauts come down from the International Space Station, their bones are stretched out a little bit, and they say that they lose some density, lose some mass. What they don't typically say is that all goes to the shoulder. It just seeps from every other part of the body to the
I
shoulder.
thought you were going to say that somehow his head had floated down into his shoulder.
So,
But yeah, I don't know if it's they didn't have the ability to do another take, and
Well,
so they had to.
There's a wire system. There's a whole thing.
For sure. I don't know. It looked like Al was trying his darndest to like get his head to bump into Mitch. It just didn't happen. So it looked like we just had like a head to shoulder.
But
contact.
it's pretty serious because the master alarm sign is flashing.
Master Alarm!
Is there a minor alarm sign? Is there a small alarm sign?
Well, and again, the size and scale of everything on this shuttle does not make sense. Every ounce that goes into space requires a massive amount of fuel. The master alarm thing is as big as Urkel's head. Every other button is button sized, but this one thing is like, you're gonna fucking remember
that this is a problem.
Yeah.
But they have a fire extinguisher. So if they need to extinguish a fire with no gravity, you can just kind of spray wherever.
Right.
Yeah, so that is a problem with liquid in space and gravity. Another one is that a hilarious line written into this episode is that while the astronauts are working on astronaut things, Urkel volunteers to sit here and sweat. And we know, based on videos from the International Space Station, that if you have a large amount of moisture, it balls up and then just flies around randomly through the air. So Urkel would be just covered in water balls.
Yeah.
And I think, John, you mentioned this already. I should have expected this. I'm just so spoiled with any TV show that was made after like 2001. But the laugh track just punched me in the gut.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. If they were giving it their all with that laugh track in this one for sure.
And the craziest thing to me is this is maybe the first time in the entire series. I don't want to say that for sure, but maybe the first time in the entire series where one of the main characters, one of the like family and family adjacent characters, is in dire physical danger, is absolutely in danger of dying insofar as they would ever allow that to happen. But just the situation that he's in. And when the astronauts bump their heads, the laugh track gives the ooh, as if Eddie has just been caught smooching the wrong girl.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, it was the, oh no, he didn't. But it's like, this astronaut might be dead, woman.
Could you imagine like the Game of Thrones ending of this show?
Well, this is the first time maybe in the series, and it's not the last time this episode that one of the main characters is in dire physical danger, and it's not the last time Urkel is in severe danger.
But I'm so emotionally invested in these characters that I've known for 9 years. I just have to see what happens.
And the laugh track just cackles as Urkel is flying through space in this unpiloted vessel, and everyone's just going, because fuck that guy.
There's also just something unsettling for me, there was anyway, about going back to the configuration. Like Urkel is just behind these two astronauts.
Yeah.
There's something kind of, it makes me uncomfortable, like he's just been brought along for the ride.
He's doing a ride along.
Yeah,
it's like he was brought along just because of his anti-gravity machine.
We have fake NASA. Can't someone figure out how to work that? That's already an astronaut, that you don't need to bring the kid?
Well, it seemed like they didn't bring him for his expertise. It seemed like they brought him as a reward. Like, this is the prize that you have won by being the only person in human history to invent selective gravity. Which, second of all,
I have a question.
how the fuck did he test it on Earth, where there is very reliable gravity?
Well, again, we'll probably never get to see this, but maybe they brought him into fake NASA and they tested it with him, but I'm sure we'll never get to see any of that.
I don't want to.
He's doing like the Goku 100 times gravity training.
Well, no, we know what the settings on the gravity machine are because that becomes a shockingly important plot point later on. Although right now we're still in funny land because mission controller Jim Meskimen warns Urkel that he is in danger of re-entering the atmosphere and becoming a crispy critter. Was this a merchandising opportunity? Were they selling crispy critter plush dolls or something? What is it? Just that there's two CRI words in a row that is supposed to make this funny?
I
Oh, come on. It's funny. It's funny.
John, you
Everybody
can't,
loves a crispy critter.
you can't do this every
Come
episode.
on.
I'll kill you.
I know
Predictions!
it's not gonna be a thing we'll ever see again.
No.
And I won't keep it in my head that long anyway, but there's no way it's a real thing.
No. Nor is the fact that somehow in the time that he is supposed to avoid becoming a crispy critter, Mission Control is able to walk him through, I wrote it down,
Yep.
3,672 steps to reboot the computer and course correct the fucking space shuttle.
This all checks out to me. I don't know
I
what
don't
your
think
problem
we got
is.
to see all of those steps.
I believe we saw one.
I would have liked to have seen all of them. You're right, John.
The show is a documentary and the events happen in real time.
Okay, can we take it back down to Earth for a second?
Well, hold on, just briefly before we get there. I
No,
want to
please.
shout out that Urkel gives a fantastically dated reference, which is saying this is one of those Malox moments, which was a huge ad campaign at the time, but I hadn't thought about it probably since 1998.
I did
I
not
had to-
piece that together.
No, I had to turn on subtitles to find out what he said
Oh,
and
okay.
then Google it.
Okay, no, this was like, that was their slogan, or you're thinking of like ROLAIDS spells relief or something like that, or
Yeah.
a Kodak moment is probably one that's more enduring, but a Malox moment that was a specific ad campaign that was very popular. I think a little bit before this would have even come out, which is probably why the two old guys writing the episode even had an opportunity to think
my
about it.
gosh.
Yeah, the commercials looked very 80s.
So there's a couple of moments in this episode that really capture how batshit crazy it is. And I think it's in that first segment, I think is the one that highlights it the most. It's when we see Mission Control say, you're going to have to send out the nerd to go retrieve the go take the satellite off of the space shuttle.
They do, yeah, they absolutely say that they're going to have to utilize the nerd. Now, let's reiterate that this is the International Space Organization, Force, whatever, knock off NASA, but probably the world's smartest people work there. To become the head of Mission Control, the voice to the astronauts, you probably have to be king fucking nerd of all of the nerds that work for
Yeah,
knockoff NASA.
You have to be a nerd, and if you're in space, you have to be a total badass.
And by their logic, Urkel, he's fucking too far gone. He's a nerd.
Alex, have you seen him? He wears glasses!
But the moment that captures it for me is when after Mission Control says that, we see Urkel, he's super excited that he's about to get to go on a spacewalk, and he's dancing. And then midway through that, he does a double take where he's like, wait a minute, nerd. And then he just keeps dancing. I feel like that moment when he does that is like a double take, like, wait, is this really the plot of this episode? Fuck it. Let's just keep going.
Well, it's
It's like
It's
in
an
that
insult.
moment, it's like, I don't know if if in that moment Julia White is like, wait, what the fuck are we doing?
I mean, I want to bring this up later, but it just goes to show you like where nerd culture is now compared to where it was then. Like,
Yes.
that's a major insult to him. And he's like, nah, it's fine, whatever.
But he has to know, right? Like, he has to know that he invented an artificial gravity machine, so he's a big fucking nerd.
I mean, that's a deeper question.
All right.
Do any of us know anything? How self-actualized are you?
Hey, we're all here, aren't we? But they call him a nerd a couple times throughout this episode. It is played as if it's a like raucously funny joke several times. So I have to wonder if
they took like a huge pause after that first one.
Yeah, this was
Like,
a
we're gonna have to send out
swipe
the
that they
nerd.
take at him.
It was huge.
applause.
Like there were you could hear a pen drop like between when he said that and when the laugh track kicks in. Like they were waiting for that.
It's like
for sure.
if you made the show in 2020, the guy at NASA would have been like, "We have to send out the cup."
We have to send in the beta.
And so I have to wonder if this is our first instance of "Did I do that?" catchphrase, which doesn't really fit here, but they call him a nerd so much.
Oh, that's okay. Because there's another one.
Oh, there's another one.
I
We're gonna
want
get
us
there.
to all say it at the same time when we
that'd be a
get
good
there.
test. All right, so are we going back to Earth for a minute here?
We go back to Earth very briefly, which is they actually do in a, I thought, shockingly clever way, which is that the daughter, who we find out is, I have written down in question marks, is she getting down with Urkel? She is watching TV news coverage of this, which at no point features footage of the shuttle, which I think shows a little bit of restraint in that they're like, well, that couldn't possibly happen. Where would the camera be? But also,
sure.
I think shows a little bit of shame in that they're like, they wouldn't want this shuttle to be on TV. They would. They know it doesn't look real on the news.
But so she's watching it. She gets upset. And one of my favorite lines
Oh, so good.
happens. She's
So
upset, concerned about her fiance.
We do find out by the end of the episode they are engaged, although there's a weird hiccup that if you had watched any episodes previous to this, maybe wouldn't have confused you as much as it did for me, but we'll fucking get there, Myra.
So
David, please say this line because I think you and I are on the same wavelength right now.
yeah, so Laura Lee gets upset, concerned about Steve's, and she goes, I'm going to go call Mission Control.
Oh, it's so good. It is so good.
She just walks upstairs to the landline.
She has their
And calls
number.
It's, that is another one. I have written down 4 moments in this episode that like really highlight how crazy it is, and that's one of the 4
Oh, man.
for sure.
Is it because
It's just like the fact I don't know, like we're back on Earth, you
We're
know,
supposed
where
to be
this
in a real
series
place.
has taken place for 9 seasons and has covered a family for 9 seasons. We're back in the natural environment of this sitcom, and we're still taken out of it because they have to fold in this space plot. She's like, I gotta go call Mission Control, and she runs upstairs. Like you can just pick up the. I don't know how it works though, to be honest.
She's gonna 3-way call Mission Control, and they're gonna patch her to Urkel. It'll be fine.
I
don't know. I have no friends that are astronauts.
right.
I don't know how it works. I don't know if you get a dedicated number you can just call anytime.
You're not the emergency
really know,
contact for anybody who's going onto the International Space Organization.
I'm not.
I am excited and afraid that I gotta call Mission Control on this one is gonna be a phrase that inserts itself into this podcast over the next couple of years.
But the way they say it, consummate professional. They're like, I'll fold this line into into this TV show. I'll do it. it's an everyday occurrence. Like you're just gonna go walk up the stairs and call mission control.
Yeah, this could be the 9th time over the course of the show that she has called mission control for
Well,
completely unrelated things.
She had 3,672 steps to fill in time for, so she probably has had a while. So now, very terrestrial drama.
Yeah, she goes upstairs and Carl comes in, right?
Carl comes in, yeah. Oh yeah, let's get into this now.
It's the Vel J himself. I wrote this down as a note, which is bringing in some extra knowledge, but we've talked about this already. Theoretically, when the show spun off of Perfect Strangers, it was about the mom character. Like that, she was going to be the main character, and this was like a female-led Cosby show for the 90s, was kind of how they positioned it. And yet, definitely in this episode, and I have a feeling in all episodes, Reginald Vell Johnson is credited first in the credits.
Oh, interesting.
He certainly had bigger star power coming in because he was coming off of Die Hard, etc. Like people had seen his face, but ostensibly it is her show, and Reginald Vell Johnson is the top billed person on the credits.
Yeah, this is kind of jumping ahead, but I remember from the very beginnings of the show, there was another character that kind of like was causing tension in their marriage. So I think it was that dynamic, that they're sort of equal but trying to deal with this other person.
Urkel.
Not even Urkel. You wish it was Urkel. That would make more sense.
I know it's not. So the Vel J himself comes in and says, "We need to talk about Eddie." And the wife is surprised, like she did not experience the events that we just saw in the last time on Family Matters.
She's very forgetful.
This exchange is amazing. And can I just say that Reginald Vell Johnson is just a consummate professional for just rolling with this batshit crazy plot.
Huge ups to him and the actress playing the wife. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now.
Oh, I do. We'll get there.
Yeah. They both kind of knock it out of the park in this episode, given nothing to work with.
I feel like that's true of all of these actors. Like,
Yeah.
it's a really well-acted show.
Yeah.
It has no reason to be.
No doubt. It's a great cast, for sure. But yeah, throughout this episode, Carl, Reginald Vell Johnson, is having to continually, work this space plot into his into his role. And I think no better example of that is in this exchange when he's like, "Yes, I heard about the Explorer getting hit by that satellite, and I'm very worried about Steve."
But
it's like the fact that he did what he needed to do, and he, like, is a consummate professional going with this plot throughout the episode. But just the fact that he had to deliver that, I don't know, it's crazy.
What's especially special about that pivot is that he is going from Urkel is in mortal danger and I'm worried about him to I want to put our son in mortal danger.
it's so, I got whiplash watching this episode. Like, you can tell it is two completely different shows competing at the same time, and you're just going back and forth and back and forth. It's dizzying.
Well, and I don't want to be too conspiracy theory-y because both of these gentlemen who wrote this episode wrote several other episodes in this season in particular. But it's possible that these are two different episodes that they were forced to smash together.
Oh,
and it's it's not uncommon for two guys to be credited on a TV episode, writers' rooms and all that stuff. But it is very possible that one wrote a cop episode, one wrote a shuttle episode, and then they were like, you need to zipper those two things together there.
It's this weird baby. It's yours now.
It's a horrible Franken thing, and we've named it Nerd.
Okay, so what happens after? Do we get more space, or do we go back to Eddie's story?
So Reginald Vell Johnson says, we need to talk about Eddie. The wife acts like she's totally confused. And then they have a back and forth that sets up kind of the two ends of the argument about Eddie the son becoming a police officer following in his father's footsteps, which are the dad believes that the kid needs to build a career and have a successful job and be able to grow in his job naturally based on his ability and his desire. The mom is worried that her son is going to be shot. And both of these kind of seem valid to me. Again, the cop factor in 2020, I have some issues about that, whatever. But
it's played like she is wrong, like 100% wrong.
It is.
Yeah, it's intense.
It's a surprisingly nuanced play for them. Like the two things and the way it's resolved is a shockingly like give and take on all sides kind of thing, and you rarely see that in TV shows, and you definitely rarely see it in TV show finales where you don't actually get to see the results of this play out in any meaningful way.
And where you go to space.
Yeah, and they just keep going back. They just keep going back to space.
Also, I did note, since this is the first like long scene in the house, I know this is the 90s. The economy has never been better in the nation's history.
I have a question.
But how is a cop affording this house in what I have to believe is a major metropolitan area? We see some shots of it in the opening and in interstitial things throughout the episode. I am not given enough information from those to know
I have a question.
where this is taking place necessarily.
Good.
John, you know where it is because you've seen more episodes of this, but this is a big city. They're probably slightly suburban, but this is a big fucking house on a
We
cop
also
salary.
don't know.
I have a question.
We also don't know what Harriet's career path is.
Oh yeah, we're given no information.
Harriet contacts. That's Carl's wife.
Not the mama.
So you still don't know where it is, even though all of the exteriors were filmed on the Universal backlot. That didn't,
Wow.
and that they just threw out 4th and Hennessy
Come
as a
on.
location. That
did
didn't
write
do
down.
it for you.
David, you're
4th
just
and
ruining
Hennessy.
the magic for everyone. Why'd you have to go and do that?
I mean, they're making good use of it.
I didn't know that. They don't film everything on location?
Well, first they went to space.
Yeah, they shot it in order as well.
You actually get pretty good tax credits in space. You know?
Probably.
Great.
Get
Yeah.
pretty good tax write-offs.
They're trying to get people to move there, so the incentives are really good to get into space. I only want to mention that the argument here ends in the mom/wife Harriet saying that Carl will be sleeping on the couch, because we get an identical as when the astronauts' heads smashed against each other, causing both of them to pass out for a long time, which, by the way, if you pass out for a long time from a head injury, you're having permanent
die.
brain damage.
I mean, I think those two things warrant the same reaction.
Speaking of which, we are cutting back to the shuttle. We need to remove the satellite before the shuttle can re-enter the atmosphere because of some spurious science here. And the only option is to send out the nerd, at which point Urkel says, 1, 2, 3. Holy
Holy
macaroni!
Ah, we got it.
And my computer did not know what to make of spelling that, and neither did I.
I have so many questions about this catchphrase.
What the fuck is my first one?
Is this the first time they've used it? Is it even a catchphrase at all? Is it a mixture of holy macaroni, holy mackerel, holy cannoli? What is
Holy
going on?
matrimony.
It seems like they just threw all three into, like they literally tore up a script, threw it into a blender and pulled it out, and however they reassembled it was how they made the episode, and that would actually explain a lot.
I think we're all better for it.
Yeah, so we're all calling it, the way that this is presented is that this is not the Urkel catchphrase, but Did I do that catchphrase? We're definitely in that territory.
God, I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I am not comfortable betting on it with actual monies, but
If
yes,
we never
I
hear it
think is.
again, I move to rename the segment name Holy Macanoli just so that we can keep the legend alive.
Keep it
Yeah,
alive.
I'm on board. 100%.
Okay. So, speaking of on board, it's time for Urkel to take a spacewalk. But, no. We cut back to Earth. And Eddie, the son brother, is
Right, yeah.
on his own walk on
Obviously, clearly not filmed on a studio lot at all.
This is
Yeah, it's-
100% that real.
It's not
Yeah.
the most generic street you've ever seen with pharmacy and liquor store. As soon as I saw the liquor store, it was either a liquor store or a pawn store, I was like, oh, that's getting robbed. No question. Like, this is the 90s. There's no room for subtlety here. I know what's about to happen.
This is stepping on another segment that I had an idea for, but do kids understand what chalking tires is?
I didn't understand what that was. I figured it out based on like context, but I was so shocked that like, oh, like they don't have meters here that tell how long a car has been here. This guy is putting chalk on a tire, and once he does his rounds and gets back here, it's been 20 minutes, an hour, however long the limit is, and then if the tire with the chalk is still there, Eddie throws a ticket down on that bad boy.
Yeah, John, were you familiar with that?
I was. I feel like I've
Gotten busted a bunch.
I've seen it before. No, like I've I've cheated. No, I'm kidding. I think I've seen it out here.
Yeah, I used
Before,
to
yeah.
like go rotate my tires, just like pull up a little bit, pull back a little bit,
Yeah,
just to like
yeah.
No, I'd never heard of this practice before. I've never seen it. It does make me think that the most opportunistic thing is to go a couple cars back in the direction of traffic, so and bring your own chalk and mark other people's tires so that the cop has to stop and ticket them before they have time to make it back to your car, and you can quickly bust out of there.
That's just because you're chaotic evil.
That sounds pretty planning. I think
Yeah.
I'm technically following the law, but just busting other people. So I'll challenge you on that.
So he's marking these tires, he's giving a woman a ticket, and then, like you said, the whatever store gets robbed, and his.
It is a pawn shop. It ends up being.
Okay, good.
And there's really, really subtle writing, in this moment.
Just across the board, I feel. Really subtle moments.
Which is why, I don't know, maybe Alex, you bring up, it's possible that this was never intended to be one episode, because it certainly
so
feels
wild.
like they are really cramming. Yeah, they're
They're rushing a bit.
they're rushing for sure.
So a robber runs out. A woman screams, there is a robber, and the robber runs out. He is holding, if I'm remembering correctly, a brown paper bag stuffed with money. He also is holding a gun.
Yep.
Up in the air, finger on the trigger. No trigger
Sure.
control there at all.
Yep.
Very bad.
Yep.
And Eddie holds up his chalk stick at a robber
Oh, right.
who has his gun out and his finger on the trigger, and the robber runs away.
Now,
The robber fucking bolts like it's the most dangerous thing he's ever seen in his life. Eddie isn't even reaching for his gun yet.
in the robber's defense,
Huh?
it is a really weird chalk contraption that he's just using, like, from his, like, security car.
I can see.
It-
Yeah.
It looks weird.
It would be confusing and potentially terrifying if you're already in a high stakes situation. But a magnificent amount of control is shown by Eddie the cop as he chases this guy with he draws his own gun, starts chasing this guy, calls it in, 4th and Hennessy, as mentioned, fucking bizarre choice. And something that I
think that's an alcoholic beverage, if I'm not mistaken, Hennessy.
Something that I had heard about happening in like old police movies, radio serials, cartoons, whatever, is shooting a perp who's running, which seems totally insane to me. But I found out recently that there were cases in the 90s that upheld that police do have the right to shoot a dangerous perp who is trying to flee the scene of a crime. You can shoot people in the back. So legally, Eddie can just smoke this fool at any point during this run.
But he's a good cop.
He's a good cop. He's not a rat.
I certainly got very uncomfortable at this point in the episode, for sure.
Is it that the guy, the robber, returns fire, or he starts shooting back at Eddie once they both have a little bit of cover? So there's an exchange of fire, and the cop doesn't shoot anybody, including pedestrians, which is very unlikely, as we know from police statistics now.
No, I think it's just, I kind of like you're explaining, like there was a gunfight that broke. It seemed very, like there didn't need to be the gunfight. You know what I mean?
Well, there needs to be, for the only reason, which is to pay off something that happened in the previous episode, which is kind of an impressive amount of restraint. But again, they did air these back to back theoretically. So Eddie is shot, despite the fact that the robber immediately runs out of bullets right afterward, and Eddie immediately shows there's no tension of if he is bleeding or in danger at all, and he gets up and busts the perp on the spot.
Right. Bang. Oh, I could be dead. Nah, just kidding. I'm gonna go get him.
Yeah.
Like, immediately.
Gets up, and again, despite the fact that he has just been shot by this guy, does not shoot the guy, which is very counter to all police behavior at the time and since.
That's a big yikes from me, dog.
And again, just the whiplash of this episode. Boom, we go from there to the son is at home being iced by his mother because, number one, I guess whatever city this is, they don't have hospitals. Number two, I guess he either lives at home or has no ice at his own home because he has to go home and talk to his mother so that she can ice him in the kitchen and then move that conversation to the living room.
It didn't even occur to me that he would have his own place.
He's a grown-ass man. He has graduated from police academy and is walking a beat, although he was transferred to traffic or parking specifically, and then is going to be transferred back to his own beat. But he's been in the academy for a while. He's a grown man.
It's been a while.
But he needs his mommy.
Well, he needs whoever this lady is.
He needs his new mommy.
Oof. Well, I couldn't tell. I don't know. Do we want to talk about his new mommy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's not go there. Not yet, anyway.
It's pretty remarkable that the TV was supposed to be based on this woman. At the end of the show, the reason that the season ends, or that this was the final season, is that Reginald Vell Johnson said, I'm not going to be continuing to be on this show. And he was the deal breaker. Like, everybody followed him. And the mom, who fucking gives a shit.
Okay, so he's being iced, and they have a confrontation. This is when they, come to a conclusion about this whole... Perfect. We're halfway through the episode. And this is what I want to talk about. So... they wrap up, I'm my own man. I can make my own decisions, and you shouldn't meddle. She's like, yeah, you're
interfering
right,
in
bad.
his career, I believe, was the operative phrase that was used.
Interfering with the career, yeah.
I think it was used at least twice, if not 3 times.
That's from the OJ trial, right?
Is it really?
If you interfere, in the curtain. No, this is fine.
Okay, all right.
So,
This is a good bit.
but they
This is working out very well.
I got bits. They wrap this up, and for the rest of the episode, like a metaphor for this entire series, they are relegated to watch Urkel's shenanigans from the couch as passive observers.
That's right.
Yes.
Well,
They don't even call
and
mission control again.
The line that gets him there is the fourth moment in the show that I think highlights the craziness of it, when Laura Lee comes into the kitchen and is like, "Mom, Dad, there's a problem on the Explorer. Steve's gonna have to go walk in space." So like you're saying, Dave, like we're just yet again we're like pulled out of what the show should be about, and I think has been about.
Yes.
We'll see as we go through it, and we're just like that. We're pulled away from it, and
They had this.
and Carl again is like, you gotta be kidding me with this shit. It's based, I feel like, the subtext of his line.
Yeah.
When he says, what are these people thinking?
Yeah, other than some propaganda that is spoken by the son and the father both, it's a surprisingly nuanced dilemma. It's a surprisingly well acted scene. There's like chin quivering from the mom. Like it's pretty touching. And then everyone just goes to watch, but not watch, because they're watching just an anchor on TV, watch Urkel struggle in space. This whole rest of the episode, by the way, the son, Eddie, is nursing the injury that is on his body and has his shirt just open for the rest of it until the very final scene. And he should. If I were him, I would find as many excuses to be shirtless in this TV show as possible, because I don't know if he is into dudes, ladies, or what, but he's going to get them.
It's working.
Yeah, if I'm him, I'd be loving every minute of that.
Okay, so the family all shuffles into the living room.
So I'll gather around the TV so we can see Urkel.
Right. Everyone, look how awesome TV is. Come, let's watch it together. The doorbell rings, and Eddie, the cop who's just been shot,
Eddie goes, yeah.
says, "I'll get it." And I swear to God, I was like, he's about to get shot again.
Look out!
Like, I don't know what made that
that thought
instinct
never
come
crossed
to
my
my mind, but I was like, oh, this is that moment in like a better show, like an interesting like show with turns, where you're like, oh shit, of course.
And you know what would have happened? They would have just cut to space.
Well, we got some turns, but I think just for us, because who the fuck is this lady?
Myra's here.
Myra. No, yeah, we're gonna find out, I guess.
Myra's baby girl voice is so uncomfortably close to Urkel's. Like, it's obviously she's doing a girl Urkel kind of, but she has her shit together a little bit more. But it's really, I'm like, oh, well, so they decided they didn't have enough annoying voices on the show. They had to throw in this character. And I was like, is she immediately seems like she starts flirting with Eddie at the door, but no, she immediately clarifies she's into Urkel. So I don't know what her fucking deal is.
And I guess she told this news anchor that she was Urkel's fiance, but she made it up because maybe they used to date, or maybe, I don't know.
I don't think she directly told the newscaster. She called Mission Control, see. And then Mission Control funneled it down to the news.
Who gets access to, does just anybody get access to Mission Control? Like,
no,
it's just in the yellow pages.
Well, the most astounding thing in this whole scene, which is so brief, she pops in. She's outed immediately on the news that she has faked and told the nationwide press that she is Urkel's fiance, which is in fact the daughter, Laura Lee, and then she immediately bolts. But in this scene where she says, I'm his fiance, to the news, she sends in a headshot that's like mall glamour shot beauty 1998. I took it in the Sears.
You guys remember malls when we can go to malls?
And it seems, well, I'm not sure that coronavirus is the only reason that we're not able to go to malls right now, John. But
that's true.
The glamour shot is theoretically there so that Urkel can see how hot she is, but she fucking knows he's in space.
Yeah. Who else? Like how is she gonna get a hold of him? Well, I guess you could call mission control, but you didn't need to go through all of this to do that. So just in a show that's already like crunched for time, they like this whole arc of this joke, like they really rush it. For sure.
There must have been. She was contractually obligated to appear in every episode. Like she must have been at a certain credit level where it has to be in every episode, and so they threw this in.
What?
Or like
it's not a thing, is it?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Obviously, it's
okay. It's like somebody know.
Somebody found out it's the last episode, and they're like, "Oh, we got to wrap up her storyline in 30 seconds,"
which does not happen because all that happens is that she lies about being Urkel's fiance, which very much surprises everyone else who is sitting next to Urkel's fiance, which I got to tell you was a fucking twist for me, man. I think at some level that Urkel is interested in the girl next door. So he like comes over and he's like hitting on her all the time. I did not know that it worked.
Yeah, that's the thing about watching this backwards. It really ruins the will they won't they. Because guess what? They did.
Well, I think there's still some room for it because even when it's a won't they, like when they get together, there's very much a possibility that they have gotten together and broken up a couple times before that, whenever we get to, season 8 or whenever it is.
Yeah.
There's a moment in that scene where they're all watching. I feel like Carl's like, I feel like he's just like throwing daggers occasionally. He's just like looking around the room like, what the fuck is happening?
At everyone.
He's got to be so over it at this point.
Well, the green screen work that we cut to is bad, I would say.
Okay, so he has pulled the satellite off. He gets shot because he's not wearing a tether. He gets shot out into space.
What
and he's
tether?
trying to...
Right, because nobody would go through years and years of training and not ensure that somebody about to go on a spacewalk is not tethered.
Right. So I think we like kind of skipped over part of this part. The astronauts are back awake now, right?
Yes. Yeah, they're both conscious, I believe, at this point.
They're just not fit
and also
for duty.
Mission Control, they ask a question of who's going to go on the spacewalk when they already know the answer to their own question.
It's the nerd.
Yeah, just so they can get that line in there.
God.
Yeah, because one of them is wearing a sling that they had on the shuttle. Mm-hmm. The other one has to drive, even though he's been brain dead for 30 minutes, an hour.
Right. And that's basically what Mission Control says when they're like, we've been listening to you this whole time. What do they say? They're like, we've been monitoring your conversation, I think is what they say.
They
still make the astronauts go through this rigmarole of who's going to go on the spacewalk.
They do one of the few jokes in here that entirely relies on prior knowledge of these characters and understanding who they are and what they act like, which is that they tell Urkel to be careful, and he says, "I always am," and then the laugh track just erupts into uproarious, "Oh, Urkel, the idea of him being careful is so funny." And
then right after that, there's just awkward dead silence of him trying to rip this clip art satellite off this clip art shuttle.
Yeah. Well, no, they built the satellite because he's actually holding onto it on the set. They did not bother to build actual thrusters into it because that fire.
You could have fooled me. The satellite looked like clip art to me.
the
I don't know.
fire that eventually comes out of the thrusters looks like those novelty braziers that they would fire off at a Spencer's Gifts to welcome you inside with all of the fun light and color
Oh boy.
therein.
So he's like maneuvering his way back, and that's the jumping of the shuttle.
Yes, he literally
Wow.
jumps
Fuck.
onto
Holy
the
shit,
shuttle. Also,
And then I guess with your bare hands, you can just easily just lift up a shuttle, remove it.
Also, this is not important, but the newscaster says that he's moving further from the Explorer, and it's actually farther because it's measurable distance, and if you're a real journalist, you should know that, so
There we go.
Wow.
zing on you, sir.
Well, if he's
Way
a
to
real
go.
journalist, he probably wouldn't have a lower third that says Nerd Watch 98.
Oh God.
Okay, so we did skip over a little bit, which is that they try to get Urkel back with his gravity field machine, his artificial gravity,
Oh, right.
his AGF 5000,
I keep calling it anti-gravity,
which is
I'm
not
calling
what you
anti-gravity this
want.
whole episode.
When they crank it all the way up, which of course they should not do, because it's an Urkel machine. Isn't that wacky that it won't work? It's impossible for him to have put tape on it to prevent it from going to a level where it would short out and endanger himself and billions of dollars of equipment. That dial on that machine is from a washing machine. Like, we're all clear on that, right? Like, it's very
You beat me
clearly.
to it.
And I think in fiction, it's from a washing machine too. The way that it's presented is that this thing is kind of cobbled together
Yeah,
from
I'd
whatever
believe that.
Urkel can grab.
You don't want to trust me with the logic of this device. This is somebody that when I was a kid, I taped a battery to a wooden car that I had made and thought that I could make it go with an RC remote.
And
So
did that work? Or
it did surprise. Actually, it did work. No, of course not. Of course it didn't work.
I do have a note here, just as Urkel is re-entering the shuttle and saving his own life. The only thing I can think of is I don't want to listen to 200 episodes of his voice. Like, I know it changes, but unfortunately I think it's changed for the better by now. And it's much worse in the future.
It's just going to get higher from here.
Fuck.
But that's another thing. Like, even in the previously on, I looked it up. Jaleel White is 5'11". Like, he's a man at this point.
Yeah.
He looks like a man.
Yeah, when the recruiter
doubt.
comes in, he's like as tall as the guy.
When he's younger, because we've all seen pictures and clips of that, like early Urkel, classic rainbow suspenders, all that stuff. He is a gangly kid, so you can kind of get away with the whole nerdy thing. When he is in this episode, like every time, he's a handsome dude.
Yeah.
He is a grown man. He's good looking, and he's like in great shape. But the only thing that really marks him out as not a person you would ever want to be around is that voice. And I think that in some ways is a brilliant, unintentionally brilliant choice early on, was to give him that silly voice and to keep it as it went forward. Because that's really the only thing that marks him off from being just a dude.
The other thing is he's got the glasses with the strap behind his head. That's the only other thing.
Oh yeah, I do have lots of notes about the physics of the thrusters on the satellite actually getting him back to the shuttle, which in real life 0% chance. Nothing about that works.
No, you dead. If that happens in real life, there's no coming back from not having a tether, which I will say again should not all be on Urkel.
No.
He's got two professionally trained
Yes.
astronauts on board with him that are just like, you got it from here, right? Just go on out there and get that satellite. Bring it back.
Is it safe to say that this directly inspired and influenced the films Gravity
Yeah.
and the novel The Martian.
Wow.
I absolutely wrote down, Gravity's just going to pretend like this episode never happened, huh?
In its defense, I watched this today for the third time.
Fuck, why?
It just
Gotta do your homework.
I think it's getting funnier. I think I already have Stockholm syndrome.
It's
and
already
I love
happened.
this show.
Jesus Christ.
I feel like part of it's got to be the laugh track. Like the laugh track, like lulls you into this false sense of normalcy. I guess like the laugh track is like the unifying factor. Like it brings you back to, oh, this is just a fun, silly, sitcom. This is totally something that would happen on this show. I don't know.
Although these shows and like Nickelodeon shows and plenty of others from this era all purport to have been filmed in front of a live studio audience, I think we all know that the laugh track is much more clearly edited. Is everyone here aware of I don't know where it falls between like Hollywood story and urban legend and apocrypha, but do you know about the like reusing laugh tracks on every TV show thing? So I have heard, and I don't believe it, but I have heard that they recorded so much I Love Lucy that the studios basically just
I've heard this as well.
purchased the laugh tracks and all of the other like reactions and stuff from the I Love Lucy, and they reused it up until like the current day. In theory, you could be hearing pieces of it at least in The Big Bang Theory or whatever you're watching in 2020. And so every time you're watching a show with a laugh track, you're listening to dead people laughing.
I think it's perfectly suited to what we're watching.
It sucked the life out of me, for sure. Good news. The astronauts inside, when Urkel is safe, high-five each other. But
It's like, where's this segue going?
it seems like an improvised moment because the black astronaut does not immediately go to high-five the other guy. It seems like that guy initiated because he was in it. He was feeling it so much that he was like, I know what this character would do in this moment. I don't need direction. And so
Well, I also got to say that, Al, the black astronaut, has maybe a right to not want to have. He doesn't have any fucking lines in this entire episode.
it's not good.
They give him 0 lines.
And of course, the newscaster back on Earth says, "The nerd's okay." Again, I have to question, how does he know? So, which makes me think that there is a second mission controller who is just constantly feeding live updates out to the news agencies of the world and telling everyone second by second the Urkel update. And the way it kind of fades or transitions, it seems like Urkel back on the shuttle is the end of the whole series. But no, they immediately cut to Urkel being hailed with a hero's welcome back into the home, and he ought to be lauded for sure for wasting probably literal billions of American taxpayer dollars, or excuse me, international taxpaying dollars.
It's not on him. He didn't select himself to go on that space shuttle ride.
He should have recused himself on account of nerd.
But he shows up and there are paparazzi outside of not his house.
Not his house. Not his house.
Yeah, I know. That's the first thing I would do after a near-death experience. Is I would go and see somebody else's family first.
Now, we do get confirmation here that he and Laura Lee are engaged. Also, there is a little boy who's been in these scenes that we have not mentioned because he is very confusing. What the fuck?
I caught everyone's name, but I don't think they say his name one time in this episode.
It's actually, so this is another thing, is that they really don't say character names all that much, period, in this episode. His name is
Well, most people were not watching it backwards, like we were. So
that doesn't
being
seem right.
215 episodes in, you might know the characters, but
This actor, who went on to be in lots of other stuff, has had a pretty successful voice acting career. He was in Proud Family and did some stuff in some other younger shows, That's So Raven, etc. After ending his run on Family Matters as 3J.
Oh. Now,
The number
when you say,
the number 3,
no, stop.
no space, the
Stop it.
letter J.
Oh, no.
His name's 3J.
Oh, God.
I believe it's because he has 3 names that start with J.
yeah. So the full name is Jerry Jamal Jameson.
There you go. Which
So he's not a Winslow.
right. That brings up some questions for me about his relationship to these people.
We found this kid, and now he lives in our house.
And that used to be Urkel, and now Urkel's too old to be a kid who comes over when he shouldn't. So now we have 3J.
3J. I kind of love that name.
It's kind of awesome, right? It's like maybe the most 90s thing I've ever heard. Other than
Yeah.
him being named Max and just riding around the whole scene on rollerblades, I think this is the most 90s you could possibly make this character.
Yeah.
Love me some rollerblades. Oh.
So somehow, apparently, the major arc of this episode that we should have all expected was the acceptance of his future father-in-law for Urkel, in which Carl says, "Welcome home, son," and Urkel says, "Thanks, Dad." And that's the emotional breakthrough that we were waiting for this whole time.
That really hit deep on Dead Dad Corner. That was
shit.
some great shit.
I think it would have hit a lot harder had they maybe not taken Urkel into space, perhaps. They could have there's a lot of real estate they could have explored a lot more effectively. Maybe just if you just don't put him in space.
If he'd had literally any scenes with this character in this episode other than this.
Other than, through the television.
So they show a cake that is it in the shape of a space shuttle?
Oh yeah,
And
he I think he improvs the line, "Oh, give me a piece of the wing. Give me a wing." I was like, that's great improv.
Actually
Way to
kind of
go.
funny. My immediate prediction was, oh, that cake's going to be made a mess. But no, we only have 10 seconds left in the episode. We don't have time
Yeah.
to see a huge mess of a cake. And it ends with the daughter saying, "Don't ever go to space again," and Urkel saying, "Only when we kiss, only when we kiss," which is, I believe, the 3rd time in the episode that Urkel repeats a phrase twice. He also does it in when they say "be careful," and he says "I always am." He says "I always am" twice, and I think there's another one, and so that also slips into, did I do that catchphrase? Is that a thing that Urkel does, is repeat things twice for emphasis? Or is that just, I'm a shitty TV writer and that's what people do when the moment is dramatic or funny, either way?
I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for that one. I really think it's the latter.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's it. That's the fucking end of Family Matters forever, except for weird other appearances of Urkel in latter material that we'll have to get into in bonus episodes or something.
Man.
Patreon.com/please don't make us do this podcast. That's not a real website, but I might make it at some point.
Just going back to the tether again.
Sure.
Just going
You're
back
still
to that.
so upset.
I'm sorry, but I just, they're telling him, be careful. It's like, yeah, be careful because we didn't bother to check if you have a fucking tether or not. So
Okay,
it's like,
but question corner.
I have a question.
The way that they set up the tether is like a well-constructed joke. Like, it's good joke structure. Like, "Oh, I'm floating back and back," and the astronaut's like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll stop once you reach the end of your tether," and he goes,
Tether. Tether.
and like, that's good joke structure. So, do you guys think this is a funny show?
Not what I've seen
no,
so far.
not this episode. I mean, not this episode.
I think I will.
The logic of the joke doesn't work though, because it's like you have to believe that they would give him a tether.
Okay.
You know, like I just don't buy that you're just gonna send him out to space to basically die. You know, it's like
Prediction.
Predictions.
I think at some point I will laugh at this show with it, like a genuine laughter if I hear something that is like a joke that they meant to be funny and it pays off with me laughing. No, that didn't happen at all this episode, and it wasn't because I was confused.
I think I only laughed on the third watch because I think I had written all my notes down.
Mm-hmm.
I was only watching as a refresher, so I was purely watching and not doing anything else, that I laughed 3 times, and I was like, "Oh no, is this funny?"
Well, and the extra problem is that with any Let's Watch show, but in particular ours, because of the way that we're trying to figure everything out, we're putting so much more analysis onto this thing that we're watching than the people making it ever put into the making of process. This is normally where you'd if you were like Breaking Bad or something, you'd be out at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery doing a finale episode, live with the audience. That's what this episode of this podcast is. I heard that they did a contest for viewers of the show, and whoever built the best invention got to go to space and then watch this final episode in space. They did not tether that person, and that person did burn up into a crispy critter in the atmosphere, which is a shame. But
now that you mentioned merchandising, I really wonder what they've got from this show. I want a crispy critter.
maybe that's our first merchandising opportunity is to make a crispy critter corner and sell crispy critter merchandise. Maybe that's what we / the fans of our podcast will be. Are the crispy critters?
The crispy critters. Because I there's the movie called Critters, right?
Yes, there are a couple.
That's what I imagine in my head. He just shrivels up into a weird hairy ball.
A ball, a ball puppet. That's a different. I think that's a different thing. We don't need to get too far into ball puppets, but.
Ew.
Fashion report for Urkel is super easy.
Okay.
This week, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you go ahead. I've got some weird ones.
Give us Urkel, but make it fashion.
He's just an astronaut, guys. He's just in space, so he's just wearing space clothes.
No, hold on, because there's 3 outfits that he goes through over the course of this episode.
Yeah, but they're all space related.
John, this is not the kind of acumen that I expect in the Urkel fashion report. The what's Urkel wearing? He has a space flight suit kind of thing
it's got the word space in it.
Right.
So there's one space thing.
Right. And then he puts on a proper spaceman suit and out of the controlled environment of the shuttle, a spacewalk suit with a helmet and everything. And then
Also,
when he comes back,
space attire.
Yes. When he comes back, he's wearing what looks like a pilot jumpsuit, like a fighter pilot.
Yeah, but it's like he just left space, and so he's still wearing government issued clothing.
Sure. I don't understand why we're fighting about this already.
We need something.
John, you were right. But the third one, I don't know if this is regulation. It has 2 parallel zippers.
Nothing about this episode is regulation.
I know extra zippers were a big in the 80s thing.
This show's not sticking to its own show Bible. I don't think anywhere in the show Bible for Family Matters is there what happens if Urkel goes to space. So
Gotta have double jean khaki jumpsuit zippers.
I'd love it if looking back on the show, they were like, oh yeah, we had road mapped this the entire time. Like we knew right from episode 1 that Urkel was gonna go to space.
Also, I know we're in Fashion Corner, but even Critter Corner, I feel like we have too many corners. So I have some pitches for names for this segment.
We can keep changing the number of sides to this polygon.
We just make it a circle and be real confusing. Just be like, I'm over on this part of the circle over here.
So the
circles don't have corners, John. God damn it!
I know. That's why I was trying to make a joke.
Oh shit!
This one I like, but it's not technically accurate. America's Next Top Urkel, but he's not a model, so that doesn't really make sense. So then I went Project Urkel, but I don't think that's enough name recognition for Project Runway. Then I had Podcast Eye for the Nerdy Guy, or my favorite, Say Yes to the Suspenders.
I like Say Yes to the Suspenders. And I would never.
Although that's a mouthful when you go to. Are we still going to put corner at the end of that? That's a lot. But if you want to say that every week.
I would never hear that somebody else is really married to the name of anything and then shoot it down. And then say that this thing that you have developed and is so close to your heart is not good enough for what I want this to be.
I'm gonna be straight up with you. I after we recorded, I went up to my wife Alyssa. I was like, "Hey, what do you think of these two names?" She's like, "I like Why Is Steve in Space?"
Oh Christ! It's too late. It's too late. It can't be undone. So, other post-show thoughts. We've covered a lot of these. I will just run through some quick. Since we did the cop rundown of Reginald Bell Johnson last time, Jim Meskimen, who played, again, the mission controller in this episode, was a cop in... These are just the ones that you would have seen, probably. Jingle All the Way.
Oh.
He is the police chief who in the live-action Grinch movie with Jim Carrey. And he voiced a police officer in a little animated film that came out this year called Scoob.
Oh, would you look at that?
Has anybody seen that movie? Does anybody know anything about Scoob?
I'll do you one better. I worked on that movie.
I
so
understand that you did, and that you also have a voice credit in that movie. And so you and Mr. Officer Space Control Man are peers, in fact.
It's crazy times. So I think it's safe to say that in part 1, we are also maybe possibly going to be in space.
I don't.
What do you guys think?
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to boldly disagree with that. I think that we saw our first space in part 2, and that there will be no loss or space in Lost in Space part 1.
But in the previously on, we see the satellite hit the shuttle.
Oh shit, you're right.
It's such a bummer that we had a previously on because all the predictions are like, oh, it's just that stuff.
But do you understand how much they packed into tiny amounts of time in this episode? Like,
I have a question.
Myra, is there going to be Myra in part 1?
This podcast is, if anybody is listening, is going to be very anticlimactic, I feel like. This is the exact opposite of how you build up, We're starting with the build and we're going the other
is
direction.
it though? Because there are things in this that are played as if they are paying off things, and we have no setup for them. Like the Carl Urkel reconciling their relationship, father-son dynamic is like, oh, finally, that's here. But there's no evidence previous to that interaction in this episode that they've had any issues with each other. Obviously, we kind of, we know a little bit about Urkel's past, etc. But that's
maybe just in terms of the material of the episodes.
Yes, in terms of
just like not every. I don't think we'll be discussing as at length some other episodes.
Fingers
this one
crossed.
there was a lot to talk about.
My prediction is we'll have a reverse cliffhanger where we know what happens already.
Thank you. That's so a bold prediction.
Oh yeah, this is probably the wrong time to say this, but if you had any intention of watching Family Matters the proper way, spoiler alert for you.
Why would it be a spoiler? This is the final episode, John.
No, I'm just saying if you had any intention of watching it from beginning to end.
Oh, so they're listening to this before they've done their run, not that they have started with the first episode and listened along with us listening to it.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe not something you mention at the end of this episode, but spoiler alert, just try and forget everything you heard.
As in everything, we're backwards, so...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just the big question, right? Is how does one of the most popular shows of its era go out in such a strange way? It should be. I want it to be anchored to the family, to the household, and we get that in spurts, but like David said, like we're always just whisked back into space.
At the time that it ended, again, we said this last time, this is the longest running American primetime series of all time. Succeeded by Friends shortly thereafter, but this is it. This is how they ended.
I'm fully on board.
It does, like, I know we've made the pun, but it seems like it's so calculated that they saw Happy Days, this institution of a show, flame out by literally having somebody jump over a shark. That became like part of the lexicon, and then Family Matters was like, oh, we're gonna do better than a shark, motherfucker.
Hold my beer, Fonz.
Yeah. This boy going to space.
Oh, man. Yeah, I would love to have been at the table read. For sure.
Yeah, because that there's somebody, maybe the director, maybe the guy who was the voice of Lampy on The Brave Little Toaster, who at some point on this table read has to go, Master Alarm. Final thoughts, boys, before we turn this off and turn ourselves loose of this horrible responsibility.
If I was having reservations before, they are gone. Even if we stop doing this podcast right now, I will continue to watch this show backwards.
Don't watch every episode 3 times at least.
You can't stop me.
It's been a good ride.
Okay. And I do have to go very shortly to call Mission Control. But before we do that, David, socials.
At DAK577.
John, where can they find you?
Well, are they still, they didn't ban anything?
We can't say for sure.
We can't say.
We're recording this ahead of time.
Instagram. You guys know Instagram, right?
I've heard. Yeah. Owned by Facebook.
Oh, well, then
Change your position on the platform.
John D. McDaniel is where it's what I use for Instagram.
Awesome. And I'm that Alex D on pretty much everything. ThatAlex D. Until next time, we don't have a sign off.
Bye.